guys, so it's me again. I am getting ready to work more on, obviously, my peacock structure that I've been trying to create for, it's now been going on about a week. What I've done so far in previous videos is created my armature, which involved these the wires that are running through it, as well as the aluminum foil that is helping with its form and its base, and then covering it with clay. And then I had to go back in and I had to cover that with more clay in order to try to fill in some of the lumps and bumps that came from the initial clay sticking. And I've got a pretty good, pretty smooth piece overall. It's not absolutely perfect, but I'll probably fill in some more as things progress. But you guys deserve a video. So what I'm going to be working on today is I have my paper mache over top of my wires, and I'm going to be covering that with clay. The first thing I always recommend is that you measure the area that you would like to cover, but I can't find my tape measure, so I used a piece of my parchment paper that I roll things out on, and guesstimated that the parchment paper is pretty close to the area that I'm rolling over top of, and it doesn't fully cover it. It covers about 2/3. So I'm going to actually double the amount of parchment paper that I'm using, and that will do more than cover what I need. I'm using Das clay. This is their terracotta, which is the same as their white, but in a different color. Das is paper reinforced, and as I said in a previous video, that helps it with strength and structure as well as with bonding. And as long as you get a good batch of it and not an old batch of it, it's got a very similar texture to earthen clay, which I love about it. So that's the clay I'm going to be using today. I will be putting on gloves because I don't like when my hands get all gunked up, but gloves are not required. Another thing I wanted to explain to you guys is what I've started doing. I wish somebody would have explained this to me, so I'm going to share it with you. I found that if you have a regular desk lamp, like this one is a regular gooseneck desk lamp, and if you use a bulb that generates just a little bit of heat, such as a halogen bulb, you can take your whole block of clay and leave it sit under the lamp for a few minutes. By doing that, what you're going to be doing is warming the clay slightly. You want to make sure that you just test right on the surface area of the clay after a couple minutes. Make sure you're not getting it too hot, because you're not looking to bake it right inside of the packaging. But warming it up a bit helps it with being able to knead it and mold it and mend it. So that is my clay hack that I wanted to share with you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my block of clay and I'm going to approximately cut it in half. And the reason why I'm doing this is I don't have one of those clay cutters that I've seen people using. One day I plan to get one, but I don't have one yet. And then after I cut it in half, I'm going to take and fillet it, basically, straight down the center. So we've got a filleted piece of clay, and I don't have a great cutting tool either. This is actually an art, like a paint knife, palette knife, that is made out of plastic. So I'm not going for perfection here. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, okay? But by cutting it in half, I already have it an approximate width that I'm going to roll out even thinner. So both of the halves that I initially cut into the clay are now going to get filleted so that they are a reasonable thickness to work with. And then what I'm going to do, pinch a little bit of that off because it should come with this, is I'm going to lay them right down the center of my work area, like so. Do a very minor, like, mending of where they were cut, so that instead of them having a seam, they kind of all go together. Then I'm going to grab my parchment paper again, and I'm going to put parchment on top. I do that because it helps to keep my roller from sticking. Now my roller, it's very unique. I don't know if you're going to find another one, but I've made it heavier inside. This used to have plastic cookie cutters in it. I still have those for if I want to cut out shapes, but it was a cute little thing I got for Christmas one year, and I've hollowed out the middle. It actually comes apart, boop, take the ends apart, pull the cookie cutters out. Now you have a hollow center, and I put rocks inside of it because I want it nice and heavy. The heavier your cookie cutter, in my experience, the easier it's going to roll. It's going to go right over it like a steamroller almost. So I'm going to start near the middle, and I'm actually going to work backwards first, one time, and then I'm going to roll over top. You do have to push down still, but not as much. And I love that. You don't have to push down nearly as much. Okay? So I'm getting it as thin as I can possibly get it to go. I'm going to take it and exert some force with my own body weight over top of it. And keep on pushing. Just keep pushing and make it as thin as I can possibly get it to go, without it starting to tear and break. And you may have to pick it up and place it again a little bit, which I'm getting ready to do now. But actually, as thin as this is, I might stop there, cut the ends off of it, and throw those back into some more clay to roll out. So let me find where the ends start to get thick again and do a cut straight off with that. Put that off to the side. And now I have this piece here. Now what am I going to do with this piece here? If there's any holes in the middle of it, because I didn't do a real good job of kneading it first, which I normally do, but for the sake of the time on the video, I did not. Any holes in it, I'm going to just fill those in by pressing it down in that spot. Now my sculpture, I've made sure the clay is good and dry. The only place that it's not is the base, and that's because I keep sitting it on the base. I'm going to move that top piece of parchment out of the way. Set this down in the area where I plan to work. And when you're working in 3D, it's always hard to stabilize it. I'm going to lay my clay on top. The funkier, whatever end is funkier, I'm putting that towards the middle. And the reason is because it'll be a lot easier for me to put clay on top of it and kind of blend the clay in with itself. I'm wrapping it very slightly on the side. Kind of hard for me to show you that part because it's so big. I don't have a cameraman that I can hire to come around to the other side here. But anywhere that it extends over the edge, I'm just going to wrap it and push it down. And that'll help me as I'm adding layers to it. Okay? But here we have a nice formation starting already. And we're going to just repeat that process. So I'll roll out clay again. I'll lay it down. I'll slightly overlap it over top of the first bit of clay that I laid down. And then I'll blend the seam between the two pieces of clay together. And that is how I'm going to get this covered up. I'm sure other people have different methods that they would use instead, which is fine. It's all going to depend on your work area. As you can see, I have not very much space at all. This teeny tiny desk, and that's it. But And my family loves to keep putting things on top of my area, even though I've asked them not to. But that's a conversation for another day. But I want to at least get this covered up. And that's the process by which I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take the clay that I just pulled off of there that was excess. Boom. I'm going to slap it down on the thing. Mush it down a little bit. Knead it a little bit. Do a better job of kneading it, then it won't tear as much. And then I have some other odds and ends of clay here from other blocks that I was using. I had that under the lamp too to warm it up. I'm going to slice right through it with my knife, which is actually a palette knife. I'm going to push those pieces in so that it ends up being a nice long line of clay. And I'm going to take my one more package here of clay that I had warming up under the lamp, and I'm going to cut it again. So I'm going to cut it in half, approximately. And then I'm going to start merging it in with the other clay, like so. Once again, I forgot to knead that piece, but if I just take it and flip it like this, should merge pretty good. Push it down a little bit, and now I'm going to take my parchment, cover it with my parchment, and get my roller out and get to work on it. So I'm laying down my parchment. Move my knife out of the way. My handy dandy roller. And I'm going to start rolling. Most people try to roll in one direction and they find it helpful. I try to stick to that, but I will come back sometimes. Just because sometimes it makes it easier to roll it out. But ordinarily, this would take me a lot longer to roll than it is now because I weighed down my roller, which gave me the extra advantage of the weight in the roller. Let's take a peek. It's pretty close to the width of the other piece. But I'm rolling it again one more time to make it as close to the same width as possible. All right, go ahead and take that off. And these ends that are a little bit thicker here, just going to go ahead and cut those, trim those down off of it. Put those off to the side. And I may find myself doing this some more, so I'm going to get some clay started with warming up while I work this onto my sculpture here.